In this video, we're going to look at making our chatbot send multiple messages through to the user. What we looked at in the last video is making the chatbot send a single message through to the user. And that was represented by an array which had a single object inside, which was the 0th object in the array. If you remember the previous video, there's a bit at the end, look up zero-based numbering or indexing, which I'm sure you did. The question though from here is, how do you think you might get the chatbot sent through further messages? Again, just try it, experiment. You can make it say one thing, just have an experiment, see what happens. What can you do to make it send multiple messages? So I'm just gonna play around. I'm gonna see, can I make the chatbot say something like, "Hello Richard," and the second message is, "How are you today?" I'm gonna add a comma because I'm adding another thing inside my array, because my theory is, well, my 0th object was the first message. So maybe if I add one more in here, ID, I just have to give it an ID. Let's just try MSGO2. Maybe this time, now I can make it say, "How are you?" Let's see what happens. It says, "Hello, Richard," and I'm waiting. It's not saying anything else. That's curious. Let's see what happens if I add maybe one thing in at the start. Let's see what happens. I will give us an ID perhaps of MSG00 using 0-based indexing. And my message might be like, begin transmission. Now it's saying begin transmission and it's not saying hello Richard. This is interesting. Can we think about what might be happening? So this isn't obvious, but the way that this particular chatbot works. This is based on a particular chatbot library. So I mentioned those foundations of a house before. We're plugging our script into a chatbot library, which is programmed to expect things in a certain way. And the way it's programmed is it receives a script, which is an array of objects, and it will begin with the first, or the 0th object, I should say, and it doesn't automatically go on to further ones. However, I can make it do so by giving a further key value pair. So if I say trigger, and what should I trigger? Let's see what happens if I put MSGO2. So now it says begin transmission, how are you? This is a good point to pause and think, why is it saying begin transmission, how are you, rather than hello Richard? How would you explain that? The explanation is that trigger, I'm giving it a string, and it looks for an object with that as the ID. And so, because MSGO2, this matches this is why after begin transmission it triggers this one here, and so it says, how are you? So I changed this to something non-existent, like beluga whale. It says, ID beluga whale triggered by the step MSG00 does not exist. So it looked for something with an ID of beluga whale and it couldn't find one. Now I want to point it to this message here, hello Richard. So I'm going to therefore point it to this ID because these two are bundled together in one bit of data. So I will say that's MSGO1. Now it's begin transmission, hello Richard. So how would I get it to now from hello Richard go on to how are you? Well, the answer, of course, is that I'm from this message. Now I need to trigger from there MSG02. Begin transmission. Hello, Richard. How are you? Great. Now our chatbot's sending through multiple messages. So now, to check your own learning, pause the video and have a go at this task here. So now you've had a pause to have a go at this by yourself. I'm going to show you how I would do this. So I'm going to have an ID, MSGO1 I might start with. It doesn't matter what I'm starting with, really. I'm going to say message is greeting humanoid. Greetings humanoid. And then I want the next message to be, I'll give it an ID of MSGO2. Message is I am Berserkatron 3001. And there's going to be a third message after that. MSGO3, and that message is destroyer of humanity and cliches. Amazing. But if I look at what's happening, my chatbot gets stuck on greeting humanoid. Well, that's of course because from here I need to link those messages now. So I need to trigger MSGO2 from that. And after that, from there, I'm bizarre from 3001. I then want that to lead to trigger MSGO3. So, greetings humanoid, I am Bizarretron 2001, destroyer of humanities and cliches. There we go. We've got a slightly menacing chatbot, but it's sending through those 3 messages. Amazing. So here I'm looking at. So if you try this by yourself, you might run into a few possible errors, or if not, it's still worth pausing, looking at this error, thinking, what has this person done wrong? What should they change? We're told it's a syntax error, which means we're not kind of following that rules of how we're constructing these arrays of objects correctly. It says expected comma, which is also helpful. So I'm thinking it's either to do with kind of key value pairs or something to do with not separating elements in arrays. I'm going to run my eye down the end of the lines because this has been helpfully presented in that way, and I can see, scanning down the end, there's 2 commas missing there. So this one needs a comma put here and here. And just to demonstrate that, let's add a comma here, let's add a comma here, and it looks like it's working. Oh, there's another mistake. It looks like this is triggering something else. It's triggering itself, so there's that loop. So that actually should, of course, be triggering MSGO2. This one should be triggering MSGO3. So it turns out there's another mistake there. Greetings, humanoid. I'm Bizarretron 2001. Conqueror of humanities and cliches, perfect. What about this one here? Have a look at that code. Think, well, look at the error. Does the error help you figure out what the mistake is? So pause, have a think. It's really important to engage with these errors. This particular error is actually really helpful. Errors aren't always helpful, but this one tells us ID MSG2 triggered by step MSGO1 does not exist. So this is my step MSGO1, it's triggering MSG2. It's telling us that it doesn't exist. What we probably meant to trigger was MSGO2. So this should be changed to MSGO2. Now let's look at this third possible blocker. So we've got a script and it runs, but in terms of visual feedback, here's what happens. This chatbot says, greetings humanoid, I'm Bizarretron 3001. Doesn't send the expected third message. Why is that? Well, important thing here to look at is look at the differences. So pattern matching is really important when you are debugging. So that pattern matching means looking at things which do work, comparing to things that don't work and seeing, well, what's the difference? Maybe that's the reason why it's not working. And, well, this first method leads on to the second one, great. Second doesn't lead on to the third. What's the difference between these two? Both have IDs, both have messages. Oh, this one's got a trigger, this one doesn't. That's right, we need a trigger, don't we? So let's add a trigger to that. Trigger MSGO3. Greetings, humanoid. I'm Bizarretron 3001, conqueror of humanity and cliches. And again, you might want to tidy this up just by having these key value pairs spaced out a little bit like this. But now we can successfully make our chatbot send different messages. So to embed this learning, make your chatbot send 3 consecutive messages of choice, and you might consider joining them in a different order to the ones you've got listed in the array. In this video, we look at making the chatbot send multiple messages. In the next video, we're going to talk a bit more about IDs, and we've